Judicial Service Commission has been lambasted for its handling of the interviews for a new Chief Justice. Questions have been raised about the sexist examination of Mandisa Maya, to the unfounded allegations of sexual impropriety against Dunstan Mlambo. Acting chair of the JSC, Kolapetse, hasn't escaped criticism either, being called weak and biased. Mbekezeli Benjamin and the rest of the team at Judges Matter have been keeping a close eye on developments. Let's see what he makes of the process. Mbekezeli, thanks a lot for your time. Shambolic, tainted, irrational, patently unfair. Those are just some of the adjectives that have been used to describe that interview process. What was your take? You sat through them for 4 whole days.
Good morning, Tapfuma, and good morning to the viewers at home. Yes, we sent through these JSC interviews, some of them close to 12 hours on each day. But I think the JSC interviews overall, they were not as bad as people make them out to be. For the most part, the commissioners were focused on the task. They asked relevant questions. There were moments in which they strayed off course. They went into issues that are completely irrelevant to finding out whether the candidates are ready to be Chief Justice. And you can recall Friday's interview of Justice Zondo, which devoted a lot of time on issues of the State Capture Commission and how he handled that State Capture Commission. Very little of it was what had to do with whether or not he could do the job of Chief Justice. The same goes for Justice Maya's interview, which had some sexist comments where she was asked whether South Africa is ready for a woman Chief Justice. That question is completely inappropriate, especially at that forum, but particularly to a judge like Mandisa Maya, who has an established track record in the judiciary and who came only to present her vision for the judiciary. And that was what should have been the focus of the interviews.
Yeah, and Annika will be speaking to Nicole Fritz later on to discuss the interviewing of Mandisa Maya. And I want to ask you about a letter that was read out by the chair, Kolapetse, at the end of Judge Zondo's interview. In that letter, it said, "I believe that should the current proceedings be allowed to continue, the Commission's work could be set aside by a court of law on application by concerned parties." This was a letter from a law scholar at Rhodes University. Do you believe that we could see a situation where the JSC is again taken to court for not handling the interviews properly, and we have to have a rerun like we saw for the Constitutional Court judge interview process in 2021?
Well, I think a lot of people have concerns, and those concerns are genuine. But in the bigger scheme of things, I don't think it's worth taking the JSC to court at this point and getting the interviews rerun. In terms of the Constitution, this has very limited power when it comes to the appointment of the Chief Justice. They are merely there to be consulted by the President, but it is the President who will take the ultimate decision on who becomes the Chief Justice. This is not to say that the JSC should simply be let off scot-free. In fact, at this moment in time, considering some of the failures of the JSC in doing its job, it is a moment for the JSC to start thinking about reforms. They need a written set of criteria. They need rules of procedure to ensure that inappropriate questions are not asked. And they need a code of conduct for the commissioners, because we saw at one point there was a screaming match between Julius Malema and Minister Lamula. That is completely unacceptable, and they should be held accountable for that.
So the interviews were meant to illuminate to us who has the intellectual and administrative capabilities to run the judiciary, who has the prowess to take South Africa's jurisprudence forward. And you believe that some relevant questions were asked. So in your estimation, who showed the best ability to hold this post?
I think Justice Maya and Judge Mlambo gave the most compelling vision for the judiciary. They were able to put forward concrete plans on how to change the judiciary to make it work better than it currently is. Judge Mlambo even gave a situational analysis of where the judiciary currently stands, looking at both the internal capacity of the institution, but also the external factors that are going on, including the polarized political environment that we're currently under. So I think those two were the front runners. But of course, Justice Maya gave a compelling report back of what she has achieved over the last 5 years as head of the Supreme Court of Appeal, and she made a case that based on her successes in the last few years, she's now ready to take up the top job and do much better than she has.
I want to get your view on this comment by a political commentator. It said that the JSC has misunderstood its role in the process of selecting a Chief Justice, that they've sought to usurp the power given to the President to select a Chief Justice by finger-pointing one individual as their preferred candidate. What do you make of that?
Well, I think that might be a little bit sort of misinterpreting the Constitution, because the Constitution doesn't say what should the consultation look like. It doesn't prescribe the kinds of options that the JSC should do in a situation like this. We've never had 4 candidates stand up for Chief Justice. So the JSC, in order for their decision to be more clearer, decided that they're going to recommend one candidate. They could have done it differently and ranked the different candidates. They could have said all 4 are appointable, but it doesn't at all interfere with the role of the President, who must still take the ultimate decision on who becomes Chief Justice. The JSC's recommendation is important, but it is not the decisive factor in all of this.
Finally, Mbekezeli, the JSC in its makeup, the way it's constitutionally mandated, is always going to have politics inherent in the mix. Is it possible that there'll be a case where it won't ever be politicized?
No, I don't think there will come a point where it is never politicized, and I don't think it's a good idea for us to depoliticize the JSC. What should happen are the politics that should come before the JSC are the politics that have to do with how the state does its job better. You'll know that the Constitution gives the judiciary powers to even overrule the political arms of state. They can overrule the president, they can overrule parliament, and that's a serious political responsibility which judges should always be aware of. But at the same time, the questions that should come at the JSC should be relating to how the judiciary exercises its power. They should never be about party politics or personalities in the political sphere. So I don't think we should completely depoliticize it, but the politics that should feature in the JSC should be the ones that are focused on the role of the judiciary in society.
Mbekezeli, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. Mbekezeli Benjamin from Judges Matters.